Right, it's time for business, and Sandra Hafenu has joined me in the studio. Hello, Sandra.
Hi, Israel. PDS, ECG, government, the bank, the insurance company, media, it's just all over the place. And I just hope that our viewers are getting the breakdown and they understand.
We have tried, and we have done our possible best to break it down to make it easily understandable to them. But if they're still not getting it, we're going to post the infographic that I put up on our Facebook page, and so they can go to that, and hopefully it will help.
And in all this, what's the way forward? That's what people want to know. We're having all this conversation.
Well, that's what the minister is saying. It will depend on the outcome of the inquiry.
All right, while we are at that, the president is assuring the business community of some measures to actually attract more investors. And that's what we'll be talking about in business. Hello, good evening. My name is Sandra Esenamapeno. As always, I'm here for business. President Akufo-Addo has vowed to improve the business environment to aid growth of businesses and investment. The president made a comment at the opening of a meeting between African governors and the finance minister in Accra. George Afe has details in this report.
According to the president, this is one of the surest ways to improve trade within the region while growing local businesses. President Akufo-Addo noted that the time has come to move away from just producing raw materials to value addition.
The continuing stability of the macroeconomy and our currency, the cedi, reduction in inflation from the 15.4% we inherited to 9.1% in June 2019, reduction of lending rates, amongst others, are examples of some of the steps that have been taken to grow the Ghanaian economy. We are keen on establishing a business-friendly economy to attract foreign direct investment, to exploit our country's great potential on mutually satisfactory terms.
He also noted that the African Free Trade Area Agreement may be the best thing that has happened to the region as you move towards promoting internal trade.
For me, the AFCTA is a truly consequential constitutional, continental institution. It is potentially a game changer with regard to moving Africa to a situation beyond aid. A large part of the growth and prosperity that we see on the continent will come from us trading more amongst ourselves, raising inter-regional trade from some 16% currently to 60% as in other continents.
President Akufo-Addo urged finance ministers and governors from other African countries to form alliances to help defend the cause of the region.
This is the rationale for the recent strategic partnership we have forged under my leadership with our neighbor, Côte d'Ivoire, under the leadership of President Alassane Ouattara, to defend the collective interests of our cocoa farmers and collaborate in the development of our economies. I'm appealing to you to make the same efforts at collaboration amongst yourselves to enable you leverage even more resources for Africa's development and transformation.
Chairman of the African Caucus and Finance Minister for Ghana, Ken Ofori-Atta, also charged his colleague ministers to make sure that the massive economic growth being recorded leads to job creation. The African Caucus meeting is bringing together finance ministers, governors of central banks who are members of the IMF and World Bank. It is also bringing together finance experts, bankers, and development partners. The meeting will be centered around three areas, that is, enhancing human capacity and skills development to accelerate growth, as well as economic transformation. It is on the theme, Africa Beyond Aid, enhancing institutional capacity and innovative financing for sustainable growth.
In other news tonight, the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority is giving assurances they have engaged airlines as well as intensified checks at the airport as means to prevent Ebola cases from getting into the country. This comes on the back of an Ebola outbreak in parts of Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda. Speaking to Joy Business, Director General of the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority, Engineer Simon Alote, assured no cases have been reported at the airport and preventive measures are in place.
In July this year, the World Health Organization declared the Ebola virus disease outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo a public health emergency of international concern. So far, a case has been confirmed in Goma, a city on the border with Rwanda. Subsequently, Rwanda has closed its border with Congo on Thursday in response to the deadly Ebola outbreak. This development has raised questions about safety at Ghana's entry points. Director General of the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority, Engineer Simon Alute, has assured the best safety protocols were being followed at the airports.
So we have been very, very proactive to engage the airlines which operate to these endemic regions like Kenya Airways, Rwanda, and we've had a series of meetings with them for us to have the profile or the manifest of passengers connecting from these endemic regions. And on arrival at KIA, they are profiled a bit more intensely. And as you know, at the airport, we also have a means of determining the temperature of all passengers arriving, through a sort of remotely operated thermometer system. And this has helped us a lot. There's an isolation unit within Terminal 3 so that anybody found or suspected to have the disease will be isolated. So far, there have been no incidents of anybody with Ebola coming to Ghana in recent times. And we've really stepped up the profiling measures for passengers coming from the endemic regions.
The current Ebola outbreak, the second largest in history, started in August 2018 and is affecting 2 provinces in the DRC. For Joy Business, Sheila Tamaklo reporting.
Meanwhile, tension seems to be mounting at the Ghana Airports Company Limited as Commissioner of Human Rights and Administrative Justice Shraj is probing a case of abuse of power and arbitrariness against the Minister of Aviation, Kofi Adda. The case is among a number of alleged mishaps ongoing at the Ghana Airports Company Limited. There's more in the following report.
Portions of the letter cited by Joy Business reveals that the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, Shraj, is investigating a complaint by one Robert Estego, who makes, among other allegations of abuse and power and arbitrariness against the Honourable Minister for Aviation. The investigation was then launched by Shraj following a complaint by Mr. Tego against the Minister for Aviation to have him reassigned to the Aviation Ministry. Before the complaint, Mr. Tego was the secretary to the board of the Ghana Airports Company Limited and group executive of the Human Capital Development. But Joy Business understands that Mr. Tego, however, ignored the directive and resumed after his leave on 29th of July. This led to him being escorted to the Airport District Police Office by a group of armed officers for lawful entry to his office. In his statement to Shraj, Mr. Tego argues, saying that given the Airports Companies Limited being a limited liability company, the company's regulations and management's conditions of service clearly indicates that the power to dismiss or reassign an employee of GSCL had not been conferred on the minister by statute or governance framework of the airport company. Hence, the minister, in an attempt to reassign duties, is exercising powers he does not possess. As the ongoing debacle continues, unconfirmed reports are that military police personnel were placed on the premises of the Ghana Airports Company Limited on Tuesday, July 30, which left a cloud of tension and fear among staff members. It is also alleged that the minister has been signing some MOUs with third parties that commits the airport operator GACL to arrangements of which the board has no knowledge of.
All right, so we have been trying to get more details on this development, but no success yet. But we'll keep an eye on this developing story and update you in subsequent bulletins. And we want to go over to some local news summaries now. And top in the headline tonight, the Securities and Exchange Commission SEC says it is probing fund managers for 5 billion Ghana cedis locked up in shady deals. Details plus more actually coming up in local news summaries.
The Securities and Exchange Commission is investigating money managers for locking up as much as 5 billion Ghana cedis in risky investments they are struggling to retrieve for clients. Deputy Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Paul Abebio, according to Bloomberg, said the funds are stuck in short-term unlisted bonds, direct private equity stakes, and related party deals for small and medium-sized businesses. The Finder reports that the recent banking reforms are paying off, as banks that have so far released their unaudited 2019 half-year results have registered positive gains. GCB, ADB, Stonechart, Cowell and others have all released sterling first half-year financial results with strong balance sheets. Minister for Business Development Dr. Ibrahim Mohamed Awal has said private sector remains the engine of growth which could move the country to its desired level. In this regard, he said it is the goal of government to train and mentor 12,000 entrepreneurs nationwide to enhance their businesses within 3 years, adding that beneficiaries of the training would also have access to a 100 million Ghana cedi loan with 10% interest rate.
Welcome back to Business. My name is Sandra Sinam Apeno. After the banking sector cleanup, confidence in the financial market keeps waning. However, there seems to be some good news with the launch of a mutual fund known as the Eco Capital Prime Fund. The mutual fund has been introduced into Ghana's capital market to help solve some challenges encountered by investors. A member of the board of Eco Capital Prime Fund, Desmond Abuaji, tells Joy Business the current downturn in the capital market makes the debt market a preferable option for investors.
Generally, looking at the downturn of the equity market, then you get to see that the next alternative for investors is to go to the debt market. So the mutual fund will largely invest in debt instruments, but in this case, the debt instruments they will invest in are short-term in nature, which means that they have maturities of up to a year maximum. So with the downturn, we expect that the next alternative will be the debt market. And if you are a retail investor seeking to do something little with some little money you have for investment, you can look at the Eco Capital Prime Fund to give you that form of. The mutual fund as a setup is a separate entity on its own. So the mutual fund is managed by a fund manager and the assets are kept by a custodian. So the mutual fund itself will have to meet the minimum capital requirement of 500,000 during this IPO period. So with the objective of meeting the 500,000, once that is done, the mutual fund can then look at life after the IPO. So it is expected that during this IPO period, that is from the 30th of August to the 19th of, during this IPO period, that's from the 30th of July to the 19th of August, the fund will be able to raise the minimum 500,000 Ghana cedis required as minimum requirement. And then from there, the fund will look at life after the IPO.
Now, let me ask you a question. Is government's growing expenditure an albatross on the neck of the economy? Is it going to lead to debt or distress? Or perhaps this expansion in spending will lead to economic growth and government achieving its goals? That's the bone of contention on PM Express Business Edition with Philip Namfuri and his guest. But before he comes your way at 9 p.m. on the Joy News channel, let's listen to one of his guests, Dr. Richmond Ituahene.
The issue of debt keeps on coming up, Doc. Some make the argument that due to the rigidities in the system, the fact that most of the revenue is taken by wages and salaries, interest payments and grants to the government units, the Dischargeable Common Fund, the GET Fund, etc. So therefore, we need to borrow. And if this borrowing is being used for projects that will pay for themselves, then what's the issue? Unless we're not using the borrowing for the right stuff. That's what the problem is. What do you make of that?
You see, I'll give you a history. In 2007, when Ghana borrowed the first debt, 750 billion, would you care to know that after the change of government, 60% were used for salaries, public sector salaries?
And how do we justify this?
How do we justify this? How do we justify it? Borrowing to consume, it means we cannot repay it in any time. So for me, just borrowing and consuming is nothing to talk about. You're talking about wages. In other jurisdictions, the wages should have been frozen. Now we are still adding on the wages, the NAPCOP and what have you. They're all adding to the wages. The IMF in 2014 advised the country to freeze the wages and stop unemployment of people to the public sector. That was one of the conditions set by IMF when the country went there in 2014. And I was thinking that to be very prudent, we need to look at the wages and the salaries, because 60% to 70% goes into, you're left with nothing.
Right, so what a conversation we have ahead tonight on the Joy News channel and also on channel 421 on DSTV. So make a date with Philip Namfuri and his guests tonight to the commodity markets now, where crude oil opened the new month with a $1.83 loss to trade at $63.22 a barrel. Gold maintained some $4.94 gain to sell at $1,418.72 an ounce. Updates of the commodity markets news is next. All for business tonight with me, Sandra, and I'm up in this more news on our website, myjoyline.com/business. Do have a great evening.